so there's a selfish reason, right? So I'm a biology professor, and so the personal reason of why STEM is that one of the courses that I teach at Georgetown is Foundations of Biology, which is the first course. It's for all biology majors, which is one of the largest majors in the college, biochemistry majors, biophysics majors, and pre-meds. So we have about 240 students a year in the course. And when you look at an auditorium of 240 students, racial and ethnic underrepresentation is an unavoidable perspective to see, right? I mean, literally when I look at my classroom, it looks insufficiently diverse. It's not representing who we are as a society, and that's going to hold back who my graduates can be in our society. And we also know historically from lots of data over many years in courses like that, that students who come from educationally under-resourced backgrounds, and those are typically lower income first-gen college students, are ones who are less successful in those courses, and we either lose them disproportionately from the major, or they graduate with grades that aren't as competitive for work, schooling after graduation from Georgetown. So the why STEM in part is because that's who I am, and that's my piece of campus, and that's the part that I have responsibility for. Optimistic days, I say responsibility for. Pessimistic days, I say culpability for. So that's, but nationally, we struggle. And we struggle with STEM education in higher education around issues of equity, in large part for two reasons. One is because of what happens in K-12 education around science education, and part of it is simply the nature as we have built science education. And I'm not sure it has to be that way, but it is how it's been built. So K-12 science education, we struggle with. We struggle to attract qualified teachers to those disciplines. We struggle, you can look at kind of any measure you want, you can look at national, international scores. We struggle to help our students be successful. And we often push towards very low-end learning goals in those settings, which leaves most students very unprepared for the rigors of a science education in college. You get to college and science education is possibly the least conducive setting to students who come from educationally under-resourced backgrounds. So classes are very large, and we know a couple of things about the penalty of large classes. So one thing that we know is that a lot of students from educationally under-resourced backgrounds have made it to college because of close relationships with supportive faculty. And so their high school teachers helped them make the most of their environments. And those close relationships are harder to establish in large lecture hall courses with faculty. We also know that those courses reward students who can learn well from lectures. And there's some very interesting national studies that say that the higher quality of your high school, meaning it does well on SAT scores or AP scores or things like that, so we can define, we can debate quality, but the higher quality of your high school, those schools lecture more often in high school classrooms. And schools that are underperforming are typically ones that do more kind of worksheet-based work. So students come better or worse prepared to know literally how to learn in a lecture. And I think we're often like, how hard can it be? You know, but I wasn't very good at learning from a lecture when I was a college student. And so those students come in seeking connections with teachers that are harder to form, and they come in less able in that particular kind of pedagogical format that they find. But we also know that science education in college builds sequentially. So what you take away from a first semester or a first year course is going to impact, it builds, my course is called Foundations of Biology, not randomly, but because it lays the foundation for the work that comes afterwards. And if your foundation is shaky, then the rest of it gets kind of increasingly shaky. And so we know that low performance in a first year course is often predictive of performance in second-year courses, not necessarily because they're just not as good at biology, but because they didn't take away as much as someone who did better in the course. And so in the second-year course, they're entering with less knowledge. And when the professor says, so you all remember last year when they taught you this, if you can nod your head, then you're in a good starting point. And the professor assumes everyone's nodding their head yes. So we also know that if you look across, and this is very true at Georgetown, it's also true nationally, if you look at grade distribution profiles, we know that students in the sciences earn lower grades. Their course grades, their GPAs are lower than students who are earning Bachelor's of Arts degrees, for example. And so there is a movement when students aren't doing well to seek out, wow, I'm struggling in these classes, but I'm doing a lot better over here. I'll switch over to the coursework in which I'm getting better grades. That's true for all students. That has nothing to do, it turns out, with your economic background or things like that. It's human nature to want to major in something that you're just doing better at. But the lower GPAs among science majors is kind of a generally discouraging feature. But if these students are disproportionately not doing as well, then we're disproportionately losing them to that GPA incentive. And so those features combined make STEM education and higher education a particularly problematic hurdle to overcome. And I think it's why schools like Georgetown in the Community Scholars Program, but also in just other versions nationally of that, have struggled particularly disproportionately within STEM to be successful in this realm.